Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of the Self-Made Mind podcast. We're joined by another very special guest. Her name is Simone Roche MBE, and I'd like to give her a big welcome. Welcome to the podcast, Simone.
Oh, thanks for having me, Alex. How's Halifax today?
It's okay, yeah. It's not a glamorous town by any means, but you know, it's my home, and I love it. So yeah, whereabouts are you in Liverpool?
Over in Liverpool, but last time I was over, I was at the wonderful the Peace Hall.
Ah, okay, yeah. Maybe playing it down a bit. It is a lovely place.
And I love actually that whole creativity that is taken from like a kind of historical building and made it into sort of. I know obviously it's challenging at the moment, but actually one of the last time I was in Halifax, we were recording our Northern Power Women podcast live from the Peace Hall.
Right. Okay. Cool. I didn't know you were over these then, Simone.
Get about me, Alex.
It's funny you mentioned the Peace Hall. I was walking through town yesterday, and I walking through the Peace Hall, and there are like these carol singers singing. And I just thought, you know what? That's beautiful. I'm pretty proud to be from this town. Just just one of those moments.
Sometimes you kind of, it's hard, you forget what's on your doorstep. And I think, I live in Liverpool, and I think obviously, lockdown was challenging for lots of people and still continues to be. But I think the one thing that I felt really blessed with was what was on your doorstep. So we kind of walked out of our out onto the front and literally straight onto the River Mersey, which, to be honest, is not always kind of the most friendly when it's blowing an absolute gale out there. But you know what? I'd never get fed up of that view, or that kind of promenade to walk down the liver buildings, everything. So I think you've got to be really grateful for what's on your doorstep, no matter where that doorstep is.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So I've read about this actually, Simone, while we're on that subject. Do you live in the floating boathouse still?
So we live in a houseboat. So we live in Lady Isabella is our boat. She is, I would call her a floating apartment. And we have been on here nearly 9 years ago. So it was over 10 years since we, I suppose, decided you have that life change kind of thing where everyone thinks you're a bit mad, and you go, I know, we're going to live on a boat, and we're going to downsize from, a lovely forever home, what everyone says is a forever home, and we're going to give it all up and live on a boat. And people just think we were drunk, and likely we might have been at some point in that decision making. You know what? I think sometimes, I think you say things and people talk about lots of things, but I always felt very proud that we said we were going to do it, and we did all the research, and then we cracked on and we built it.
Yeah, amazing. Is that just kind of an example of you sacrificing some sort of things to, to be able to? Did you sacrifice like living in a home to be better off financially? Is that something you've done, or?
Well, it was one of those. My husband had worked for the local authority for his whole life, and it was in those days where it was a job for life, whereas there's no such thing now as a job for life. And we were on on holiday, and the way all your dreams come out when you're on holiday. I'm going to sell shoes on eBay for a living, something like that. Although I could do that, to be honest. But he thought he was under threat of redundancy, and thought, oh God, and you think, and he started getting stressed, and you don't really see him stressed. And you think, well, actually what we have to do in a situation like that is take stress out your life. And I don't think we thought of it as this big kind of downsize, but what is the stress that is going to come if you lose your job? It's paying the mortgage, isn't it? And you can change your lifestyle, and you can cut back on everything, or there's always something to cut back on. And we thought, right, okay, so we said, well, why don't we downsize, and then we don't have that responsibility of the mortgage and that hanging over your head. And then we just didn't like anything that we would look to downsize to. And we'd had this joke when we were on the holiday, going, we'll live on a boat, that's what we'll do. And then you come back and you go, can't really live on a boat. And then we looked at houses and flats, just nothing really, God, I can't believe it, nothing floated our boat. And here all week. And so we decided that we would look, and we did look, and we looked for around about, a few months. After about a month or so, we found out that Rob's job was safe, but we decided we'd do it anyway, because if ever that stress factor came into play again, well, we just cut the stress out, frankly. That's what it was about. So, but yeah, really, really interesting. So we ended up building one because we couldn't find one that we liked. We travelled from east to west of the north of England down to the south to look at different boats. Didn't like anything. So I drew it out on an Excel spreadsheet, 60 feet by, because we wanted something that was big enough for the Leeds-Liverpool Canal. 60 feet by 13 feet. That was the biggest we could have. And that's how we kind of drew it out.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's good. I think for people listening, I think it's just an example of, sometimes you've got to eliminate stress out of your life. And that's a very good example of you doing that. Yeah. Brilliant. So, Simone, so I'm very interested in your personal story. So if we can take it back to your childhood, and if you can just tell us a bit about your childhood and your upbringing, if that's all right.
For sure, yeah. So I'm an only child, of Liverpool parents. Dad used to work away quite a lot. He worked away in the airlines, and then the gaming industry, actually not gaming as in what we would call gaming now with PlayStation, but
like arcade, like gambling almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like gambling, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I'm being Hyacinth Bouquet here, fluffing it up. But anyway, that's my mother, actually. Sorry, Mum. So I was in Liverpool till I was 4 years old, with living at grandparents with my mum and dad, and then we moved out into the sticks, out into Lancashire, and very much in the middle of nowhere, but with a really big family around us. So even though I was an only child, I had tons of cousins, like the big northern family kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
We had the biggest garden that everyone would descend on in the summer. My birthday is half Christmas, 25th of June. So that would always be there'd always be an excuse for the adults to have a party for me kind of thing. And I'm like, got wise to that. And then the same Christmas, New Year. So very much a kind of big family. If we went away, fortunate to get away on holidays, would always go away with like nan and gags. The grandparents would be in tow, and often the great uncle and auntie and cousins, so it was quite a busy, quite a social, I would say, quite a social upbringing, if you like. Quite social. Didn't really know what I wanted to be. Don't think I was particularly academic. I think I was good at maths, or I was good at maths and good at languages, but writing stuff down, not so much. Thought I was good at art. No, just like colouring in. But yeah, I really sort of struggled with what to do. Kind of went off. Finished school again, really struggled, wanted to be a vet, then no, I only wanted to work with the animals I liked, and so did my A-levels, probably wrong A-levels, did economics, and what else did I do? Maths was great, was good at that. Then the teacher changed just after I did my mocks, and that was it. And so my A-levels were pretty much a disaster. But in the time I was doing my A-levels, we had a careers fair in the gym, because we were always in the gym, weren't they? I don't know why.
Yeah, everything were in the gym, yeah.
Always smelled a bit sweaty, not great. Anyway, the Royal Air Force were in there, and I went and had a chat. And then I went off and did tests, and then there was just something that didn't quite fit. There was something that I was like, it's okay, it's an option. And I remember getting accepted and everything, but I went round to the Royal Navy careers office in Liverpool, and getting through that door was kind of like a real change, a light going on. I felt that was somewhere I belonged. So sorry, that was a real speed trip through my.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Yeah, so. So that brings us to, was that your kind of when you went into the Royal, was it Royal Navy? Is that correct? Was that your first sort of experience in work then?
I'd worked, so I'd done my A-levels, and I'd got accepted by the Navy as what they call a cadet entry, and it was on the premise that if you got your A-level grades, you would go in as a rating, an entry level, and then after 18 months they'd give you the opportunity to go for officer promotion. And I'm like, oh no, I just want to start at the bottom and work my way up, it was only 17, and I thought, oh no. Anyway, and I don't know why, because I knew I wasn't going to get my A-levels. I didn't feel confident about them. And then when I didn't get them, I called the careers office thinking, this is what we're going to do now. And they were like, no, you totally fit what we want. But in that meantime, while I was then waiting to get accepted and join, I worked at the social services in the Dole, basically.
Right.
Wow, God, that was a whole pay-per-view television experience from there. People like coming across the counter trying to get some of the staff and all this kind of stuff.
Oh God!
But do you know what? I was probably I don't know what it was. Probably a clerk is what they would have called it in the days. Lots of filing. There was lots of filing habits and lots of like paper cuts, is what I'd say. And to be honest, I can't remember too much about it, because everything for me was a focus of going and starting on what was going to be my adventure, if you like. And it was, I always think it was the best thing I ever did to join. But then when it was time, years later, there was a decision. I wanted to have another career before I was too old to have another career. But the Navy for me was a magic fit, I think, a real. And it was in those days, 88. I know, surely not. Those of you won't see if you listen on my podcast. But it was for me. It was women didn't go to sea at that point. But I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't know any different, because that was the way it was. So I didn't think I was joining at a disadvantage or anything. But oh God, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And I think that's absolutely where I suppose I think there couldn't be a better training ground for being a business owner is because you're just never off, are you? You know that you run your own business, and you can never be off. And so my work ethic has always been like ridiculously high. So I think that and that whole journey of joining, getting down on the train from Liverpool down to Cornwall, getting off on the ferry and all there with your your suitcases ready to go, with all your stuff that your mum sent you away with as well, that you weren't really allowed to have. But it was fantastic. It was, for me, it was a real sense of coming together, different sets of teamwork. But you think of the forces as teamwork, but it was a different type. It was bartering and what we now call collaboration, I suppose, isn't it? So it'd be like, right, you iron my shirts, I'll polish your shoes, I'll braid your hair, not your hair, Alex, obviously.
You can do if you want.
But there's an element about that going on, and I really loved it, and I had a real pride to wear the uniform, to be honest. It was, and it was my mum and dad. It was the last thing that my dad attended. Mum and dad came down for the passing out prayers. It was fantastic. And then when I joined the Navy, actually, what was really interesting is mum and dad decided to go into the pub game. They decided to have a total change, and they ended up flipping up the road from my first proper base. And I'm like, what is going on here? And they had half the staff, half the base where I was posted, working in the pub, around the shifts and stuff like that. But it was during that time, which was, I'd only been in 18 months, that my dad died. So it was really sudden.
Right.
Not sudden. It was a quick process. It was like 6 weeks from start to finish. The dreaded cancer and all that awful stuff. And so mum and dad went home, and they sort of given dad sort of 6 months to live, and it was 6 days later he was gone. And it was just such an, I don't know, it's an awful time, and certain ththings I can't remember, if you know what I mean. It's weird. But the one thing that the Navy did is they sent me home. And they were like, just go home. And I'm like, no, I need to be part of something. And so I worked at the careers office in Liverpool for 5 months, which I always think sounds a bit weird, but it was probably one of the best jobs I did, was to work in that careers office. And I got the chance to go out and visit the schools. I loved it. And so I could go and get into uniform and do what I signed up to do, but equally, other night I could go home and check my 39-year-old mum, because she was only young, was okay, and just be there. So interesting time, I think, really interesting time. I say some of it can't quite piece it all together, really.
Yeah. So obviously you're very unfortunate event of your dad passing away there, Simone. How did that kind of knock you off your path at all, or how did you deal with that? Did you remain focused in that time?
Take every advantage, I think. I think, funny actually, not thought about that, or, reflecting back sort of many years on. But I always kind of say, we always say, what's the best advice you could give or something? I always say, say yes and work it out later. And I think because of my sort of my job, I had so many different opportunities, so whether it be volunteering at Wimbledon or going, God help me, underwater potholing, or I know, but I lived in there was an element of not dangerous, although that was scary, but there was an element of, everyone uses those, live every day like it's your last or whatever, but I absolutely wanted to maximize on every opportunity, never don't go along for the ride kind of thing. So there was something really important about doing that because Dad had worked quite a lot of shifts as I was growing up, so I was much closer to my mum than I was my dad, and that's probably why we had the big extended family always around us. But when I joined the Navy, and it was far more kind of aligned as well to his world, and so he was like super proud for to see his untidy young daughter going off to join the forces and stuff. But I think I still think now, and it's a long time ago now, 89, a long time, isn't it? So I think that absolutely is the thing for me is, work hard, say yes, work out later kind of thing.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I'm sure your dad would be proud of you now, Simone, anyway, looking down. And so you've had a very, I'd say, you learnt a lot in that time of your life, definitely. So bringing it up to Northern Power Women, your business, you're the founder of that business. Could you just tell us about how you come into that, Simone?
Yeah, I after leaving the Navy, I got very much worked in the hospitality, visitor economy industry. So I worked at HE Racecourse, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the new arena in Liverpool, the Olympics. So had a really kind of interesting. I loved what I learned in the Navy was about, I suppose, what they call logistics, but for me it made me a great event organizer, because you've got to get people in the right place at the right time, in the right uniform, with the right food, or with the right sort of supplies or whatever it may be. So I felt I really had a passion for that, and because I'd volunteered so much while I was in the Navy, that was an industry I think that beckoned me, if you like, that sort of connecting in the events piece. But weirdly, I'd never felt sort of any disadvantage for being a woman in the Navy. I never, even though I was a really, when I was a Wren, I was one of 4%. When I went through the ranks and became an officer, I was 1%, but I never felt, it didn't feel different to me. I felt there was definitely a difference in a north-south piece, as in accents, like what we have. It was definitely that, and and those are the days, I suppose, of BBC English and where the sort of proper language and stuff. So I think absolutely. I didn't feel that disadvantage. But when I was working for a sector skills council in the hospitality tourism industry in London, there's a whole campaign around women at senior level of boards. And I went along to an event, and it was a room of people drinking warm wine, kind of complaining and saying how badly done to they were. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't think this will fix the problem. And so I kind of got into solutions mode, I suppose. I thought, well, how can I interfere? How can I make use of, if you've got 60 people in a room drinking warm wine, how can we make better use of those great role models, and I started bringing together. I thought, we can't steal people's time. If we're going to bring people together, we'll bring them together with purpose and, you know, with a real practical element. And, you know, I equally went, right, where's the men? Let's bring the men, and where's the young people? You know, because it's all part of the, you know, future conversation or the wider conversation. So it started from there, really. Set up something called TEDx Whitehall Women in London. Really built, you know, everything I did around gender equality was in London. And then 5 and a bit years ago, or 6 years ago, there was a big festival in Liverpool, International Festival for Business. I lobbied to do an event. I said, if you're going to do something of this magnitude, we should talk about gender and talent, you know, because I think this is very much about business and talent. And so I created Women Inspiring the Economy, and then I subsequently created Northern Power Women. I wanted to signpost. I didn't want to say, come to me for everything, because for 3.5 years I was on my own, so I couldn't really do that. I didn't want to create a membership or a network. I wanted to create a movement, I suppose, a campaign, something that I didn't want anyone in the North to ever say there wasn't anything for them. And I wanted to change the geography of where the conversation around equality was coming from, because everything's always about London, and I wanted to change that, because I know there's so many kick-ass role models in the North, and that became my mission, to grow a huge community of role models, of which is now around about 60,000. And I want everyone to be able to look. So me, as my 17-year-old self, you know, not getting her A levels, thinking, what the hell am I going to do? Or even my 14-year-old self thinking, God, what am I going to do? Then I want people to be able to look around and go, oh my God, actually, they seem okay. They seem a bit, you know, crazy. I quite like to have a look at that. Whatever it is, I think there's, and I didn't realize till recently, a couple of years ago, that was in my thinking as to, and I think it's just because I can. If I've got a skill to connect and gather people and, you know, share and be generous with your, I suppose, your connections, your network, you've got to do that. Everyone can do something for someone. That is my whole thing. Everyone can pay it forward. Everyone can do something which supports the development of someone else, and that is irrespective of age, background, race, gender, ethnicity. It's really important to me that we kind of enable this kind of real Northern spirit of can do, will do. Yeah, I know there's barriers. I know there's all kind of challenges, but I really try and focus on what we can do, as opposed to all the stuff that is just too difficult to do. I'm a bit of a crack on girl, and you use that right at the start. Let's crack on.
Let's crack on. Yeah. That's very much a Northern thing, I think, innit? And yeah, that's great. No, I love I can feel the energy, even though we're on a Zoom call. And I think people buy into that naturally as well. And I think from a leadership point of view, I think you're the perfect sort of leader. You just want to help people, and you've got a vision and you've got a mission to help as many people as you can. I just wanted to speak to you a bit about leadership while we're on that, Simone. What's your kind of idea of a great leader, and how do you put that into your own sort of role?
I think a great leader is about we obviously got to bring a team around you that's better than you, kind of thing, you know, because the last thing we all want is, God, I couldn't imagine a whole team of me, you know. There's elements of buying into the vision and what you're trying to do and create, and the passion. Everything's got to have energy. We won't tick boxes, and we've got to put energy into stuff. And I am a bit of a fan of a bit of mischief as well. You know, you've got to do that. If you're taking people's time or you engage with people, you've got to inject that. And if it naturally doesn't come to you, then it can be done in a sort of a different way, I suppose. But for leadership, I think it's about, I say, building the team around you, which can, you know, really, you can bring forward their ideas. I think I'm a big fan of letting people crack on. We now are, we're a team that had to really downsize at the start of lockdown, before any of us even knew what the hell a furlough was, or whatever. You know, we were just starting to grow, and then you kind of have to kind of sort of scale back very quickly. But actually, there was a leadership element in that, where you have to make those decisions very quickly, so that you can then help that person, support them into the next role, which is what I did. Everyone got kind of new roles and stuff with organizations. But I think it's absolutely, as we're now building forward again, I think it's about getting people to come out their own comfort zone. So I think you've got to offer leadership, but you've got to empower people to learn themselves, to kind of develop their own voice, because this isn't all about me. That's really, that's important. So I think there's absolutely creating a framework where everybody can thrive and everybody has a voice and everyone feels as though they're part of the bigger. It's pride, isn't it? I think is, if you can set that out, then people feel proud of what they do, and that to me is a success. I don't want people to work for us that they might be the best person to do X, but if they're doing it in isolation and not doing it or kind of, they're not doing it with, sort of how they can add their own sort of stamp on it. I think that's really important, and hence that's why we created Northern Power Futures a couple of years ago to kind of look at what does the future of the North look like by those people who are going to live and lead in it, to be able to create platforms. That's everything we're about, really, is platform and stages. And so whether that's someone who's working in your team, whether it's, someone who's a great role model like yourself, it's anywhere that you can offer to give people those platform stages and a voice. It's I suppose it's the total opposite of what for years the boys clubs have been, and that's nothing against men. We're absolutely, Northern Power Women is about all genders. We're all about male advocates, and really, really important. But I think there's an element of, we all have a responsibility to open a door, and not just because our nan brought us up well.
No, that's amazing, Simone. I just wanted to. It's funny, I was listening to another podcast yesterday, and it's a chap called Stephen Bartlett. Have you heard of him?
No.
He owned like a big software company, I think it was, like a social chain, I think it was called. Anyways, just sold it. He's called Stephen Bartlett, and he's got a podcast called the Diary of a CEO. And they were talking to Jake Humphrey, who's also got a podcast. And a topic of conversation they were talking about yesterday, and one of them brought up, they said, how have you found getting female guests onto your show? And it were kind of a discussion they had where they both come to the agreement where they couldn't find anywhere near the same quantity of female guests come on the show compared to male guests. And I just wondered what your thought on that was. Obviously, there's some, we are acknowledging that there is that kind of, issue still there, but what's your thoughts on that, Simone?
So we've been doing some work with the BBC around their 50-50 project, which is all about getting better representation in the media. And that started about 18 months ago. And then we did another event with them in January. And what we also did over this lockdown period, it's funny, isn't it, how we adapt and, sort of revise what we do. One of the things we've done is we've created something called the Be Heard campaign. And if you think of one of the reasons I've created Northern Power Women is to create this visible hall of role models, so we don't have an awards to gather people and get loads of sponsors in. Of course, we need funding in to make this stuff happen, but we do it to create books and pictures of visible role models. That's why we created it. And equally, we just built a platform over this period as well, whereby it's about connecting people with opportunities. So I constantly say, just ask me. If you don't know, I will know a woman, hopefully another woman or a man who can. And so I get contacted most weeks by the media. Do you know somebody who can talk about this? Do you know somebody who can do this? So we've created this Be Heard for anyone to sign up to, but obviously we are very much pushing the female agenda, and we're also pushing a Black, Asian, minority, ethnic agenda as well, so to grow those voices, because that's what we preach about amplifying voices. So we've grown these. So what we're asking people to do is to share their side hustle. So I think there's a challenge. So there's times when I've gone out and I've put on social, right, Radio 5 Live are looking for someone to talk about this at 6:15 tonight, guarantee at 6, and I've put it in every WhatsApp group, I've put it in, whatever. And I know there are women out there, and I've gone to, can you do, no answer, no answer, no answer. The next minute you've got, oh, I've only just seen it. No, and I'm like, so I'm working really hard, and it's weird because some of these women are super experienced and super senior, but there's still a barrier. There's still a fear. I suppose it goes back to standing up and speaking in class or the public speaking thing. But I think, so what we've tried to do by the Be Heard is say, don't tell me what your job is or what you do. Tell me about your side hustle. Tell us about the thing that, and I learned this a few years ago, and it's that thing that when I remember speaking to someone, she was a managing director of Virgin Holidays.
Okay.
And she talked about her company with pride, and she talked about the brand. Virgin has, always had a good sort of brand. Then she talked about the foundation. And all of a sudden, she was in a different place. She was like, oh my gosh, and it was so animated. And then she talked about this entrepreneur scheme that they'd set up in the Caribbean to support local entrepreneurs thrive through their tourism. It was just that. And it was, and that has always been, to me, is that's what we have to find. If we can unlock that, or get people to identify or unlock that, that's what you put yourself forward to speak to. You don't have to put yourself forward about being the CFO or the founder of a business. You can talk about something else. Like, if you want to talk about why do Northerners always talk about the weather, you can talk about that. If you want to, if you want to talk about why it's important to be generous with your time and support others, talk about that. So put yourself, because actually, you're finding that, particularly in the media, or we've tried to expand this out to events as well. And so absolutely send them my number. I want to help. I want to help, because I equally think it starts, we can work on this as the younger level as well. So you kind of take the myths away before you're too long. So Be Heard is, what we want people to sign up to. Again, it's free, but constantly it means that we can signpost. And, I did, in fact, Eleanor, who works for me, she's 19 years old. I got asked literally about 3 weeks ago to go on BBC National News on a Friday afternoon. And it was about how is COVID impacting on young people. And I went, well, I will come, but why don't I bring Eleanor? She's 19 years old. You can ask her. She's in the number one hotspot, what was the number one hotspot in Liverpool for COVID. So why don't you ask her? And it was brilliant. And, so but that is what we also have to do, is we also have to, it's about that open door thing, Alex, where we've got to, if you like, be mindful about getting other people to get in on these conversations. Otherwise you'll just have the same old people. And that's why I set Northern Power Women up. So we have the different voices, we have the different genders, we have the different takes, because that's interesting, right?
Yeah, of course. And if there were one person that I knew would give let's say a very a very positive response to that question I asked, it'd be you. And I were right. So thank you. And by the way, I messaged you and you come back straight away. And I've never had any issue with female guests on mine, but these lads were talking about it. So, that's a great response, Simone. So we're up to date now. So kind of, what are you doing at the moment, Simone, and what are you kind of planning on doing in the near future, really?
Well, we talked about this. The pandemic and COVID, it's been a really sort of challenging period. It started with postponing the awards 4 days out, what would have been the largest awards celebrating gender equality in Europe. Challenging, because you're dealing with 1,000 people and you're dealing with 200 of those who are about to be celebrated, and you can't break that spirit. You've got to, it's really important to us that constantly waving the flag, right? It's really important to high five, embrace your own responsibility as role model, and be a visible role model. So, so that was kind of a challenge. And, but then we obviously had to adapt to the situation, because I don't think any of us realised it would go on for this amount of time. So we built something called the Power Platform, which again, it's about people being generous with their time, people being, so whether there's opportunities, whether someone's got, coming on a podcast, we actually have a bit about speakers. So if you want to put a shout out for a speaker for an event, or a speaker to talk, put it out there, and we will share it, so it almost is, it's a bit like the Too Good to Be True website in some respects, but it's designed to be dare I say, a digital version of me where you constantly go, oh my gosh, you should talk to them. Oh my gosh, you should put yourself forward with that. Sometimes that's what we've tried to design. So we've got that. That's brilliant. And we've just again, things that may not have never have happened. We're now a sort of a tech startup business on the side. We've got one of those. We're currently formed a partnership with a education charity called Future First, which is all about role models in school. They sort me out through the phrase role models. They're passionate about really deepening that engagement in the north of England so that everyone can be an alumni and be a face at their school. They don't have to speak in assembly. You know, it could be a one-to-one, it could be a poster, whatever it is, but it's all about that visibility of, you know, the local lad or girl who's got a story. You know, it's not about being chief exec. It's about having a story, owning your story, I think. And so really excited about that. So we're currently building a white label. Who even knew what these things were anyway, of the platform but it's a partnership that's technology, but it's also a partnership with purpose and people, if that makes sense. God, that sounds really cringy, but you know, but it is. It's
no, that's good. That's good.
It's got to have purpose in it, or otherwise, what's the point? We've written a report, our Leveling Up report, which is again us about going, how can we better influence? How can we use our power and influence to level, to make sure we have better advantage in the north? And we are very much an organisation which is about what we can do as opposed to pointing a finger. That's not tend to be how we work. So we tend to look at showcasing what is good and great. It's not grim up north. That is absolutely one of our sort of key mantras. We've been doing carousel mentoring in schools, which has been fantastic. So imagine the scene: 160 young year 10s and 30 mentors on Zoom. Myself, my husband, Northern Powerman, in the school with a technician, and making sure the kits are working and watching the world of work come virtually to life to young people. That I have been totally inspired by. I have an honorary position in the Royal Navy now, which came to pass in June. Who even knew these things existed? There's 35 of us in the world. I'm the only female in the north, so I'm an honorary Lieutenant Commander now in the Navy. I know, it's nuts, well done, right? Simone. It's like coming home, but you know what? It's like my work was not done, if that makes sense. So now working with them around, and again, I'm an advocate, that's what my role is. But you know, like this education charity said, get everyone in the Royal Navy signed up to be an alumni at their school. It would be such a massive kind of hit straight off. So stuff that you can influence, you know, so that's what we're currently, our campaign at the moment is about asking for more seats at the table so we have more balanced conversations, investing in female-led businesses and Black, Asian, minority ethnic businesses. And that's not just about financial investment, it's making the world of work a more flexible place, and then investing in future talents. They're kind of our three campaigns. Obviously looking forward, global domination, why not? We're in a smaller world now, but just keeping people connected. We launched a virtual mentoring program with 75 pairs, which was not expected. I did it just, again, it sounds, I did it out of the goodness of my own heart. No, I did it to keep people connected, and I wanted to see if it was needed. I only ever want to do stuff that will make a difference. Otherwise, stealing of time thing, I don't want to do that. And so anything that we can add, you know, we can add value to, and it does. I think definitely the theme that's kind of come through, and even though we haven't had the chance much to stop or reflect or whatever, we just keep moving. It's the connectivity, keeping people connected, whether it be by a podcast, whether it be by a blog, whether it be by mentoring. I think it's always being mindful that people engage in different ways. So, you know, I'm kind of excited about the path we're going on with the education piece. That's really exciting. The path that we go on, you know, just early today, I had a meeting with, you know, 15 senior leaders in Cumbria, and, you know, only knew one of them. And that makes me excited because it means that we're never going to run out of Northern Power women, you know, and we can always keep amplifying voices. We never have to circle around the same people. So that to me is really exciting. And again, it's about this going forward. It is about genuinely growing the army. So if we're now at a point where we have asks for good, if everyone uses that influence and everyone uses their power, whether it's opening a door for somebody else, whether it's an ask of government, whether or not it's an influence somewhere down the line, then whether or not it's listening from that series of young people, then you know what, that's really exciting to me. So the future I'm hoping has got opportunity for all in it, because that's what we want: fairness and equality.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's brilliant, Simone. Yeah, just listening to you talk about your mission and your company. It's just, I can just sense the pure passion coming from you. Do you think that you need passion in your chosen path? Do you think you need passion?
I definitely do. Yeah, I absolutely definitely believe I couldn't do anything that I didn't love. If you'd have asked me 6 years ago, would I be running my own business? Absolutely not. No, didn't really feel like that was for me. I don't think I am an entrepreneur. I now think I'm entrepreneurial. Do I think I'm the best entrepreneur? No. We're not a commercial focused organization when so many people are obsessed that we should be. And I do believe that if we build a field, it will come, kind of thing. But it's really important that whether it's what I'm doing or whether it's what the team are doing or whether we've got volunteers or people who just want to get involved, it's got to matter to them. I think it's really important. I could not just sit in that cubicle, but everyone has a different reason for getting up in the morning. Everyone has a different reason, so I do think I live behind the excuse sometimes. I live on a boat, so whilst there's living on a boat is still not the cheapest option in the world, but it cuts out certain expense. So I definitely live behind that sometimes and think, wow, but I do think that's an excuse sometimes, and maybe need to woman up sometimes and and but no, I'm proud of what we've done and what we've achieved. I'm impatient to do more, because and to encourage people, everyone can do something. Yeah,
brilliant. All right, Simone. Yeah, well, we're coming up towards the end there. It's been fantastic speaking with you, and so just a couple of questions to finish on, Simone. So, can you give me a fact about you that most people will not know?
Okie dokie. I think a fact about me would be when I was 18 months old, I was naked on the television on a TV program called Wish You Were Here, which was a holiday show. So,
right, yeah, I'm sure.
Naked toddler on a beach with a beanie hat and big glasses. That's what my mother kicked me off into. I'm not sure that is Northern Power Women material, but yes, TV star at the age of 18 months. There we go.
Fantastic. Right. If you had the power to invite anyone into this chat with us right now, can be dead or alive, who would you choose and why?
Northern Power Nana. Lost Northern Power Nana last year, 97. Yeah. She always made me believe that I could be anything I wanted to be. So an early age. I know you're a Liverpool fan, but I was an Evertonian.
Sorry, Simone.
I know. Sorry, the signal's gone. Yeah, there wasn't anything as football that women could play or girls could play, and always made me feel like I only ever wanted to play for Everton. They probably still need me, to be honest. I probably do a good job now, but
you do a better job.
I led you into that. Just that buying me the Everton tracksuit, and of course it was in the days where there wasn't kit for female shapes and sizes. It was just just anything, everything was possible, if you like. And I think that definitely has kind of stuck with me. I don't know what she'd say so much. I think she'd just actually, to be honest, she'd have probably quite a lot to say actually. I'd love to have her back in the conversation.
Oh, bless her. What was she called? It's super
Isabella. So our boat, Northern Power Nana.
Power Nana, right?
Yeah. Lady Isabella, which our boat is named after. Was named after Isabella. And I remember we took her to the boatyard when we were building it, and when we got her out and put her in the water, remember she came into the marina office and she told all the staff behind the counter that it was her boat because it had her name on it and not to take any notice of us. So that's why we had a white built, all because of Northern Power Nana.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, so just a last question to finish on, Simone, and then we'll wrap it up. So just to finish on a high note, just to anyone that's kind of at the start of their journey, Simone, thinking about, really taking control of their own life, what would be like your final piece of advice to someone that's just looking at getting started or thinking about, getting going?
Build your network around you, and don't always think of that as a business network. It's your community network. It's, be interested in other people, and that will form around you, and ask for help. Do not be an island kind of thing. Ask for help. And I tell you why we end up, when we do things around our mentor, and we always end up with way more mentors than we have mentees. And it's because of that barrier of asking for help. That is a really key thing. So build your network. You can never build your network early enough. And network is not just for the privileged and the senior and those with really good family connections. It's for everyone. You all have conversations with people and ask for help. Even if it's, have you got 2 minutes to have a look at this for me? Could I share? Could you read this before I send it? I still do that now. I have friends and I'll have on the subject and I'll go, it is a red pen moment. Ask for help. People want to help. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's so relatable to myself as well, Simone, to be fair. I've always believed in a strong network, and I think that's what you've kind of built your whole sort of journey on. So yeah, that's perfect to sign out on. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been fantastic. And I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best with your future, and let's keep in touch. And
absolutely. Thank you for letting me in your Halifax home. Now, Alex, I have to ask a question. I can see a piano behind you. Do you play?
I'd love to say I do. My girlfriend does.
Oh.
It's just for sure for me. I just wanted to look like I were a bit of a musical talent.
Do you know, it's brilliant. It's better than a bookcase. It's better than a bookcase or one of my face mask holders.
Yeah. We'll have to get you a piano sent across.
Absolutely. So, and I know all that was useless for anyone listening to the podcast. But
yeah.
You'll have to edit that bit out.
Yeah. No, we'll keep it in. Right, Simone.
Thanks so much, Alex. Lovely to speak to you. Stay in touch.
Just a last thing. Where can people connect with you, Simone? Sorry.
People can connect on Twitter, Instagram at Simone Roche, SimoneRoche, or northernpowerwomen.com, northernpowerfutures.com, or power-platform.com. I'm everywhere.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you very much, Simone. And take care.
Thanks, Alex. Great to chat with you. Really enjoyed it.
You too. See you later.
Thanks for listening to another inspiring self-made story, and we hope you enjoyed the show. We would be very grateful if you could kindly leave us a review, as it will help us impact a wider audience. You can do this on iTunes, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you want to reach out on the socials, find us across all platforms using @the Self-Made Minds Podcast. See you next time, and happy success making.